So, well, good. So I want to go ahead. Let's go ahead and get this one's going.
Okay,
I appreciate you sitting down with me, Sheriff.
Yeah.
So obviously we talked about the race is coming up. June 7th is the primary.
Yeah, right.
And there's so many people in the race. There's so much going on in the world today. It seems like every day we wake up, every other day there's some new controversy or
Every
world
day.
event. So I wanted to do this as a way to, as a public service, to let everybody know about the candidates, let them know this important election coming up, and hopefully provide a little clarity on where everybody stands. So thank you for sitting down with me. And so I wanted to just jump right into it. Tell us about yourself and why you decided to run, and a little bit about your background.
Well, I grew up in Pascagoula.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a Pascagoula policeman. I grew up in the environment of law enforcement. My mother was the secretary of our church and drugged me to Sunday school every week. And so that was kind of my foundation, growing up here and playing baseball and sports and enjoying life, hunting and fishing down at the beach, with my friends, and just enjoying the life here that was provided for me and my family coming up in Pascagoula, of which I love my hometown like everybody should love their hometown.
Right.
And I've always been very comfortable being around people, and enjoying life and learning from different people. Growing up in a police household, we were had our marching orders, to do right, and it stuck with us. I love my life. I love my family. I enjoy the great outdoors and all the things that not just Mississippi has to offer, but our country. Where else in the world can you go and enjoy a vacation, be free from so many things, and not have to worry about going and coming at different places and just enjoying life. And that's what I think is so important about the American way of life.
I agree. That's beautiful. One of the things I wanted to jump right into, and I'm glad to hear your story about just growing up in the way of life.
Yeah.
I think that these days things seem so much more complicated. You don't know which way's up, which way's down. And from my perspective, a lot of that has to do with a lot of changes, but distrust in government. And I think a lot of that comes from corruption.
Yes, it does.
So I wanted to, I saw there was a candidate running for Senate the other day, and I can't remember his name, but he was mentioning a kind of a pay-for-play program where congressmen would have to basically pay a certain, like $1 million upwards of to actually get on committees, and it was a pay-to-play program. So I'm not certain of all the specifics, but can you just talk to me about corruption in government and your experiences in it?
Yeah. Well, I have had since I've been in office. When I took over, the former sheriff had been indicted, removed from office, and that was one of the things that prompted me to run for office. This is my profession. I love, police officers, sheriff's deputies, first responders. We're all a big family, and that put a scar on my profession. And so that's what prompted me to run for sheriff, in which we did. And we won in a special election in 2014, had to turn right around, run in 15, and no opponent in 19. But it all went back to what was going on in this sheriff's office here. And I just couldn't stand it. So I said, instead of standing on the sideline, I was going to do something about it. And so I ran for office. I was elected. Since I've been in office, we have indicted 4 people, 5, I think. Several of them did some prison time. I just couldn't stand the things that I saw going on here, and I wanted it right. And so that's what prompted me to run and get right in the middle of it, and to get some good, sound policy in place so that when the next sheriff comes behind me, they won't have to worry about some of the things that we had to contend with when we came into office. But, there has been, going all the way back to the 70s, a mistrust of government. Going all the way back over the time, we've seen so many scandals upon scandals, and it just infuriates me to see those kinds of things. And so that was another reason why I wanted to run for office, to clean up some of the things that I saw, and that's what's got me going forward for this congressional race.
Right.
There's such a mistrust, and I've always been a part of the community, and I'll do that again. And I've always been accessible. People call me, I call them back, so that they'll know that their sheriff is a good man,
Right.
and their sheriff takes care of their needs. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed about being sheriff is that when I call them country people, that's our people. But when country people come to town and they've got an issue, so many times they want to see the sheriff.
Yep.
And so I sit down, I've talked with so many people. It's just been a blessing to get to talk to so many people about their problems and what we can do as a sheriff's office to help them with it.
Yeah. And I think that with the federal government and so much corruption going on, it seems like, I was a former mayor working at the local level. You're here in the county. So, we understand kind of being in the middle of who we represent, whereas in Washington, they're a little bit removed, and it seems a little bit easier, more opportunity to cozy up or for corruption to happen. So can you speak to that about how just keeping lines of communication open and such?
Well, as being the sheriff is the most recognized elected official in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just look around, people always get interested in the sheriff's race. Who's the sheriff? Well, I'll take that same process with me if I go to Washington, because, like Ronald Reagan once said, all politics is local.
Yep.
And, once you get off, it'd be, like 1,000 miles from home, you think that you're away from your friends and your family and those kinds of things. But the true character shows up when you're by yourself.
Yep.
And with others that you don't know. That's when your true character comes out.
I agree.
And I have learned that over the years. I had a lot of great mentors coming up. And, it's like I always tell these young deputies when we're hiring them, and it's like, just remember that you work for the people, that you represent the sheriff, that you represent the sheriff's office. Don't get out here and abuse your authority. Mm-hmm. Don't mistreat people. Return phone calls, talk to folks that need help. And that's what I will take with me if I go to Washington, that hometown message, that hometown feeling. Yes, I'll be away up there dealing and learning a lot of new things, but still your character is who you are.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll take with me. And to try to overcome some of these hurdles that we have seen with ethics and various other problems that cause so many problems for these elected officials.
Right, absolutely. One of the important issues I wanted to speak to you about is, at the local level, we have to stay on budget. Right. We only have so many tax dollars that come into our office, exactly and we have to spend those tax dollars wisely. Inflation is what, 8.9 or something percent. I think that's probably inaccurate. Yeah. It's probably higher than that. But from my perspective, a big part of the reason our economy is in the shape it's in because government just spends too much, right. And they have no idea about balancing budgets. So can you speak about that?
Well, it's the old saying goes, it's always easier to spend somebody else's money.
Yeah.
And I have learned from being the sheriff. The sheriff's office has approximately about a $20 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money. And we have employees, we have assets, we have cars, we have you name it. And but I'm still responsible for this. Mm-hmm. And if you look at my budget over the last several years, we've been very, very careful with the people's money. This is not my money. We provide a service. We have manpower issues. We got to keep people in place so that we can respond to the needs of the people. And that's what it's all about. It's public response, public service. Mm-hmm. And so just like, at my household, when the money runs out, we stay home.
Yeah.
When we got money, we go out to eat, we go enjoy the boat, we enjoy life, like living here on the coast.
Yeah.
So, but when the paycheck's out, that's it.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is, and that's the way I was raised. And, my dad worked 2 jobs. I usually, with the exception of being in the sheriff's office, I've always had a couple of jobs. I just do that because, I want to provide for my family. And, that's the same idea. That's the same ideals I'll take with me to Washington is that, got to live within our means. We cannot spend our way out of this mess.
Right.
You know, at some point we're going to run out of everybody's money. And so, you know, we've got to get this spending under control. We've done it here. The first couple of years we were in office, we saved enough money on fuel. $400,000 was the first year and a half or 2 years in office that we were able to take that fuel savings and give the men a raise, the deputies a raise. So, you know, that's what it's all about, to try to provide the best opportunities for your workforce so that they will provide you with good work ethics, work hard, protect the people, do their best. And, you know, if they see you acting and conducting yourself like that, they'll follow suit. And that's what, you know, that's what it's all about. But, yeah, just spending is out of control. And it would be like if I was out of control spending here at the sheriff's office. I mean, somebody would be screaming at me.
Right.
And they would start with myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the, I mean, bringing, you know, a good attitude and making sure you're doing right by your office is I think, essential. Is there any type of particular policy prescriptions that, I don't know, maybe a balanced budget amendment or something like that you would like to introduce?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, your congressman is your man, is your voice or your woman's voice, you know, in the Congress.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I would like to do is to find some like-minded people, and there are more and more of them every day, some like-minded people that we could come together and try to come up with some legislation so that we could do better for our people. Because, you know, you like I said earlier, we can't spend our way out of this. We can't keep printing money. You know, there's just so many things going on. It's like you said earlier, daily we see these things happening that we've got to get control of. And it's just like we cannot continue to live on a credit card. So I'd be first and foremost trying to find some people that think the same way we do so that we could try to get the spending under control.
Absolutely. Switching gears real quick. So the Mississippi just enacted the medical cannabis program. My question is less about specifically on the Mississippi side, but more on the federal government side. Right. So, you know, I know you've come out against the program, and I understand that. What's your opinion on where the federal government stands on this?
Well, you know, the federal government needs to kind of take a role in this thing, of course. You know, and I have nothing against, you know, medical marijuana if it's properly controlled, properly worked, professionally managed. I have no problem with that if it can be used to help someone that has some problems. My concern about it is you know, getting in the wrong hands, which that's going to happen. But the federal government needs to, like so many other things, put some guidelines down, work with these governors in the states to try to implement some good policy and some good procedure so that it will be properly used. You know, and people are going to use, it's like alcohol. You know, alcohol is free-flowing all over this country. So if we're going, and it looks like we're going in this direction, you know, the government needs to listen to some sheriffs and some police chiefs. I'll bring that knowledge with me that I have, the things that I have seen over the years of my time as a police officer and now as a sheriff, that we can implement some good policy so that it could be properly managed and used for the right reasons.
Right. So specific with that, I mean, it's I think the 10th Amendment is, you know, one of the most important aspects. I think a big part of what we've seen, how the federal government has grown, is just not respecting where the states stop and where they begin. So what, I mean, as far as, I don't know if specifics, but where, I guess at what point would the federal government start to take over, and at where would you see that line?
I'll tell you what, that would be one for the record book.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, the states are always, you know, we're independent. You know, that's what states' rights are about. So, but again, it comes back down to communication, a little bit of trust on both sides. You know, let's sit down. This is going to happen. You know, it's just like when Prohibition, back in the 30s, you know, we had Prohibition. That didn't work. And so, you know, alcohol has been out there, but But what we've got to have is some understanding and a little bit of trust on both sides that we could come to some conclusion so that we could implement this properly. And the states, I'm all for states' rights. We need to have our independence, but we also have some working relationships with the government. I mean,
right.
there's no getting around that. Every day, everything that we touch has got some sort of federal connection with it.
Sure.
So if we're going to do that, let's try to put some common sense together, if that exists anymore, and work with our government and try to reach out there and say, look, this is going to happen. Let's try to figure this out so that the things that the people want can happen.
Sure. So one of the aspects with not only with cannabis legislation, but all legislation we've seen through the CDC is also overreach on agencies and different departments. And I think specifically, like I said, with the CDC, you've seen just going out and making all these health mandates, all these regulations. Recently we just saw that the mask mandate was overturned by a federal judge. And now the Biden administration says they're going to be suing to, I guess, reinstate that, which I don't understand. But so can you talk to me about that aspect of it, as far as making sure that Congress sets the rules and you don't have this rogue government, if you will.
And it goes back to states' rights again. And Congress does make the laws, just like the state legislature makes the laws. We may not always agree with them, but they are the laws. Yeah. So that's what we need to be abiding by. But these executive orders sent down about these mask mandates and some of these other things, it just gets to the point where when is it going to stop?
Right.
Why do you keep doing this? It's not working. They keep saying follow the science. Well, they're not following their own science.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to put an order out, I mean, let's get a little bit of information first before you go to jamming something down our throat from Washington.
Right.
We know what we need here at home. And, you don't always know what's best for us. I mean, we live here. So don't quit trying to overreach, in my opinion. I think there is too much of these executive orders that go out or trying just to get around the Congress. That's not the way this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
That happens in an emergency. And, at first, we didn't know a lot. So as time went by, we got these shots, which were, if you wanted to take it, you take it. I took it. I didn't make everybody take it. That was my personal thing, just kind of like the flu shot. I take the flu shot every
Your own prerogative.
That's exactly right. So if you want to do that, fine. But that's what it's like being an American. We are free, and we're going to keep it that way. If I go to Congress, I'll stand up and scream and holler at these things. You will see me being very vocal for our people.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And actually, to follow up on that, specifically with our rights and these agencies, gun rights is one of the big issues for me. And I think with whether it be a cannabis issue or any type of other issue, we've seen a lot of people concerned about their gun rights. Biden just made I'm not positive on all the specifics, but going after ghost guns. So what's your thought on the Second Amendment and the overreach of that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, the Second Amendment's in place for a reason. And that is so that we can right to keep and bear arms and protect ourselves. And, if you just look across the country right now, the crime wave that's going on around the country, it is just unbelievable. And, some of these liberal district attorneys that are kicking these people out, not keeping them in jail. I mean, it is just, we've got to be able to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to feel safe at home. And that's one of the things that I've always thought about as the sheriff or as a police officer, is people want to know that you have a concern for their interest, that you care about their safety and security, and that part of that is about your Second Amendment right, and that you do have the right to keep and bear arms and to protect yourself. And, they always want to blame and take the firearm. They always want to blame the firearm. Well, the firearm is controlled by a person.
Right.
And that's who needs to be in jail, not let out early, not free. You got a career criminal that has done all these things. And now you're going to give him either no bail or short sentence and let him go? No, that don't work. And you see them time and time again in these big cities that have this no bail, free bail. Not sticking with the sentence, letting them out early. They're going right back and committing crime on top of crime, homicides, kidnappings, carjackings every day. Look at our big cities. I wouldn't want to travel to some of these big cities anymore just because of the crime wave that's going on and the lack of support for the police.
Yeah.
We've seen this lack of support for the police, defund the police. It's crazy. And the police, 99.9% of every cop in this country are good people. And I stand by that. In every profession, there's going to be some things that happen.
Sure.
And I've always said on the best day, police work can all go in a ditch. It can. I mean, things happen. When you're living in a society, and especially with some of these folks they're just not going to do right.
Mm-hmm.
They are not going to do right, and they need to be in prison, and we need to hold them accountable, and we need to hold people accountable that make these laws or these liberal policies that let these people out of jail.
Right.
And, that's a big surge in our self-protection and Second Amendment right.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of self-protection, that a really good segue into my next topic, which is foreign policy, because we saw obviously Russia invaded Ukraine, which is terrible. Putin is a bad actor. And we saw everybody wanting to give guns to the Ukrainians so they can protect themselves. And I'm like, well, you kind of get the point now. But can you talk to me about foreign policy and the role of Congress, and how do you feel? Right. What's our place?
America has always been the leader of the free world.
Mm-hmm.
We are, and we are the. There's been a lot of said about being involved in so many wars here and there, but there are bad actors in this world, like Putin, the Chinese, the North Koreans. They don't care about human rights.
Right.
They don't care about the freedom. They don't care about the free market. All they want to do is have more power, more authority, so that they can rule over their people. So America has got to be that shining city on a hill. That's why do you think so many people are trying to get here every day?
Right.
I mean, because we are in my opinion, the greatest country that ever was. Mm-hmm. And I love my way of life here. So we have got to have this influence around the world that we're not going to stand for these human rights abuses that are going on, these people that are being murdered, slaughtered. There's no telling what's going to come out after this Russian thing in the Ukraine. But, these people are fighting for their freedom. Yeah. They are fighting for their hometown. We need to supply them with any and everything that we can get to them. Mm-hmm. I mean, just look at how the Russian effort just stalled. Their military.
It's amazing watching.
Exactly right.
Watching it.
Their military is not what they portray it to be. Yes, they do have the nuclear option, but their military, if you look and you listen and you pay attention to what's been going on, this little small band of Ukrainian military guys have stood their ground. Mm-hmm. And, I think we need to take note of that. Right. The Russian army is they're a formidable foe, but they're nothing compared to the Americans.
Right.
The Americans are always willing to stand up for the underdog. We've always been the guy or gal that signed up, showed up, stood up. I'm here. Let's go. And that's who we are. Mm-hmm. Just look after every event. World War II, we rebuilt all those European countries. That's who we are. That's who the Americans are. Mm-hmm. And that's who the people know that we are. And we've got to make our stand for these folks, because don't think Putin is going to stop where he's at. Right. He's got other ideas, just like the Chinese does. So we cannot allow these people to do what they're doing. We've got to stand up. And I'll be screaming and hollering for our military, support our military, build up our military, get back to the ships that we need to fight the wars around the world. I'll be a big supporter of that.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, as far as the foreign policy, that regardless of where you fall on the particular conflict, I think what we're also seeing is that Congress just doesn't declare war anymore.
No.
I mean, and I think that's one of the things. Congress has just ceded all their power to the executive branch, and that goes back to how we talked about the overreach. But I think it's one of those where if Congress would just regain their authority, regain their power,
Exactly.
A lot of this, would not be perfect,
Right.
but we could have an honest conversation about it
That's
again.
exactly right. Without losing our minds over it. Growing up, I followed politics like a lot of us did.
Yeah.
And we things can get done if we don't take so much so personal. It's just like me serving as sheriff. I'm the sheriff for everybody. And I told many people this when I got elected. You may not have voted for me. You may not have wanted me in this office, but I'm still your sheriff, and I'm going to do my duty as your sheriff for everybody that's out there in this community, because that's what you elected me for. And that's what I do. I'm here for everybody's sheriff. I'll do the same thing if I go to Congress, but Congress does need to insert its authority again, with the executive branch and do what we are elected to do.
Right.
So many times what has happened is that so many things have been turned over to bureaucrats who have been in office or in jobs in Washington forever until they make all the decisions.
Yeah.
The elected official is not making the decisions that he should be making, but these bureaucrats are making them because, whether they're in the State Department or Department of Defense or wherever they are, they're making decisions that the congressional leaders should be making. And I think I'll scream loud for that.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Right.
Well, Sheriff, I think that's that was all my questions. So tell us where can the people find you? You got a website?
Yeah, we have a website. It's www.mikeezell.ms. We've got our website there. You can go and look at what we're doing, where we've been, the things that we've been up to. I tell you what, 12 counties is a lot of counties, a lot of territory to cover, and we've had some early mornings, some late nights.
Yeah.
But it's all worth it, and it's because of the American way of life here that I love what I'm doing. I feel very good about where we are and our road to victory at this time.
Good.
And I just ask that the people come out and look at us and look at where we've been in our lives, the things that we've done for our community, and what we'll do if we go to Washington.
Awesome. Well, Sheriff, I appreciate your time, and everybody be sure to go on June
the 7th.
June 7th.
Yeah, that's something.
June 7th.
June the 7th is the big day. Get out and vote. There's always just not a lot of interest in these elections.
Yeah.
And so we got to get our people out June the 7th. And I think with as many candidates that are in the race right now, I think we'll have a turnout. So get out there and vote for Mike Ezell.
Yeah. I hope we have a big turnout. So everybody be sure, check out Sheriff Ezell's campaign page and give him some consideration. So, Sheriff.